Welcome to the Ag Weather Outlook for November 26, 2016. Well, I've really been stewing over these unusual temperature patterns, and I find it very interesting. We have very warm areas where it should be cold at this time of year, and quite frankly, it's making it sort of difficult in making a long-term forecast. I'm also watching over the north-central U.S., the far northern U.S., that we have a couple repeated snow tracks. Nothing I'm concerned about, but you might remember I always look at feedback once we get a deep snowpack. Low pressure tends to go right on the southern edge of that very dense snow. Way too early for that, but I am watching it. And then this underlying mild pattern. So anytime we try to get cold in here, and I start talking about this big cold, is it not as much as models suggest, and we go back to warmer, or milder, I should say, sooner. And I still think we're seeing that. So before I get into the forecast, let's look at the last 7 days. We had some needed rain and even some snow over the far northeast U.S. We also had some significant precipitation over the south central U.S., but pretty scattered, and also some rain and snow over the north central U.S. Overall, a quiet week in most areas. Now look at the southeast U.S. This area has been very, very dry. It was dry one more week, but good news if you're in the southeast U.S. and parts of the dry southern tier of the U.S. It looks more active, not just this week, but over the next couple weeks. Now, as far as snow on the ground, here we go. We have Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin, northern parts of Michigan, and the northeast U.S. We have some snow cover as well as snow cover over the mountains of the western U.S. Now, temperatures last week really are a bit different than we're going to see over the upcoming weeks. That cold air was still established over the eastern U.S., and we had some milder air over the west. Now, I wanted to show you some of the weird type of temperature patterns right now over the Arctic source regions, and I'm always in winter looking at source regions. And what I mean by that when I refer to a source region means that is where the temperature patterns that we get in the U.S., either in the near or even down the road in the future, originate from. And it's usually Canada or the Arctic, and I mentioned in a lot of my posts Siberia, so, in the cold regions. But this red here is unusually warm. So key Canadian and Arctic source regions are unusually warm at this time. Now, Siberia and Eurasia is cold, and some of that, I believe, is working under that warm pocket and going to be making it into the western U.S. Now, let's go way out to December 12th. What has changed? Well, according to models, and models have not been all that accurate, but models are indicating that the warm air still persists over this region all the way through December 12th. So I think that's shaping up to be one of the more interesting anomalies so far this winter, this warm air. And I think as long as this anomaly is here, that's going to drive our weather in some way. But models are indicating that we are pushing a lot of cold air in. So compared to the U.S. from now to December 12th, especially over the western U.S., that's what models are saying the trend is. So let's sort of break it down here. This is the current jet stream expected for the next 5 days. And we have this broad dip in the jet stream over the west and the central part of the U.S. That's going to be ushering in colder temperatures with a frontal passage that will be pushing across the U.S. this week. It's be very noticeable with warm air and rain and snow ahead of it and colder air behind. Now, if we average out the 5 days, because it's going to take a while for this front to move through, you can see we still average milder than normal over the eastern half of the nation, eastern 2/3, and it's just starting to get cold over the west. Now, give you some timing on when this front's coming through. This is Monday. So by Monday, you can see it's about halfway through the U.S. And I'm going to be showing you here this feed of moisture from the Gulf here. Look at this. This is late Monday night, and we have a feed of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico that's feeding up into this system. The green is precipitable water, gives me some idea of how much moisture is in the atmosphere. It's been a while since we've seen this much precipitable water over the southeast U.S. And if you're in that area, you know how dry it's been. It's been incredibly dry. Something else I'll be looking at week to week, I sort of introduce my winter suite of products, is storm tracks. The reason I like to look at those, it gives me some idea of what areas are active or not. It also gives me an idea of possible snow, because snows could be on the north and northwest side of this area of low pressure. So this is that system coming through. There is an area of low pressure this week. So what we look at this week is a lot more rain than we've seen over parts of the southeast U.S. Now, we'll say that southern sections of Alabama and Georgia aren't going to get much relief, if any, but the northern part of Alabama, North Georgia, Tennessee, surrounding states is going to get some very needed precipitation over the next 7 days. Now, some of the rain over the north central U.S., over parts of North Dakota and Minnesota, again, it should be cold enough behind that low, so we can't see we have some more snow, and that will be adding to a bit more snow over that snowpack over in Minnesota, northern Minnesota in particular, and add some additional snow over North Dakota. So that's the forecast for this week. Now let's go out a little bit further into early December. Remember that trough? It was over the western U.S., and now it's pushing a bit over the east, sort of elongating here. And that's going to gradually spread that cold air in. So during the 6 to 10 day range, we have temperatures in the blue below normal, and then we still have some lingering warm air over the far eastern U.S. above normal. But most of the nation in the 6 to 10 day range below normal temperatures. Then as we get into the 11 to 15 day range, December 6th to 11th, it starts to moderate. We have the trough pulling back again to the west and more normal type jet stream pattern over the east. And here are the temperature averages for the 11 to 15 day range. So this gets back to my opening comment. It's like the real cold air just does not want to persist. It's like sort of like we have this underlying mild preference, and then when we get cold air, it's never quite as cold nor as persistent so far. Now, over the western U.S., that might be different and might stay that way for a while, but over the eastern half of the nation, that sort of appears to me to be the type of pattern. So what we have here in the Arctic Oscillation here, remember, when it's above this line, it's positive. It usually means a milder U.S. Below this line is colder. What we have is this is that mild pattern the first 5 days, and then this is a transition. When it crosses that line, we have a transition, then it gets in the colder. So it's going along as a good predictive tool for what we would expect over the next couple weeks. Okay, so we mentioned temperature, which is certainly not uncomplicated. It's a bit tricky, but we have that trough pushing from the west to the east, so the pattern is going to be mild initially, then getting colder, and then probably moderating back close to normal. That's the temperature pattern. As we get into mid-December, precipitation here, you can see we have over this 2 areas really this week, needed precipitation over the southeast U.S. and then some snow over the north central U.S. Other than that, a pretty quiet week. Week 2, look at this. This is why I say back-to-back weeks over the southern tier of the U.S., and this is not that La Nina pattern. I always have to remind myself that we get humbled a lot when we start thinking about what might be the predominant pattern. I know the outlooks not have worked out all that well if these hold as we get into December, the long-range outlooks for the month. But we have a long way to go. We're not even in the month yet, but so far they're starting out pretty much opposite what was expected. So here's week 2. Overall, that's good news for that area. And then here's week 3. Temperature probabilities on the left, so below normal and above normal, and precipitation, at least for the weeks 3 and 4, going back to dry conditions over the southeast U.S. Now, because we have that switch from a positive to a negative Arctic oscillation, we do have a transition, and with that transition, we have your typical impacts, high winds behind it, heavy rain over the eastern half, and even the chance of severe weather. This is that secondary severe weather type pattern, and very classic late fall active type system. So I think I've covered these all. Needed rain for the southern U.S., modest snow to the north, and then colder behind the front. Hey, if you have not looked at the Weather Decisions dashboard, I look at this all day. I set it up and have it on a second monitor here and use it to monitor what's going on. If you want to go there, go to agweatheradvisor.com. Username and password are both NCGA. And if you would like to go through and have some questions on how to use it, I know there's a lot of things it can do. Send me an email, and we can set up a training session or whatnot, and I'd be glad to go over it with you or answer any questions. But I use it almost every single day, find it very useful, both quiet days and also very active days. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving, and we're beginning to get close to winter here now. We're heading towards December. I'm going to be putting out this week some thoughts for the growing season in 2017. So I think you'll find that interesting. Take care.